It's Ricardo Walker here with my partner Vasily Poulos, and we're here to talk to you about the basics of fantasy football.
So I'm going to start off telling you guys about some of the basic terms that you'll see a lot when it comes to fantasy. So one big thing in every single league, this comes up. It's PPR and half PPR. So the difference between these two things is half a point. So PPR is point per reception. So when a player makes a catch, they get a full point. Half PPR, it's exactly what it sounds like. They get half a point. So if a player ends a game with 8 catches in a PPR league, they'll get 8 points just from those catches. But in a half PPR league, they'll get 4 points. So it does make a pretty big difference. It's something you want to know.
Another term you guys are going to have to know coming to your leagues is ADP. It just stands for average draft position. So where a player's going, and it may vary between what website you use. Like Yahoo, a player could go at 50, and then ESPN, a player could go at 30. So you just got to know that. And then another thing is that when you're drafting, there's going to be a certain format, like snake draft. So what a snake draft is it's like you reverse each round. So like the first pick goes, and then the last pick in that round will have back-to-back picks, and then it swaps. So then the last pick will have the first pick, and the first pick will have the last pick, and it just goes like that.
And then final term that I want to introduce you guys to is the waiver wire. So waivers will be right after the draft ends. You'll go to free agents, and the waiver wire is players that were not drafted that you can pick up. So waiver wire is important because if you're thinking, oh, they didn't get drafted, why would I want them now? It's because players that don't get drafted can be end up being really successful players later in the season. So if they start to do really well, you might want to pick them up from the waiver wire. And how the waiver wire works is it's basically an order in your league. So in most leagues, it'll be reverse draft order. So whoever picked first will be last in the waiver wire. Whoever picked last will be first in the waiver wire. And first place in the waiver wire will always have priority on a player. So first place in waiver wire is competing with seventh place in waiver wire for the same player. First place will get that player, and once you use your waiver claim, you'll start off or you'll go to the back of the list, and it flows from there.
Oh, and guys, know your league settings. Like different leagues have different settings. Players will vary performance off of those settings. So like just know your league settings.
Yeah, and what you want to do in fantasy in draft, like if there was one word you needed to know in a draft, it would be to value. You want to get as much value as possible. So that means if you look at the ADP of a player, which Rico went over, which is the average draft pick, you would want if you were picking around pick 60 and there was a player with the ADP of 38 and it's a position you're looking at, like those are the players that can really help you build out a strong team because value players will basically give you advantage each round, like compared to your league mates. So it also works in reverse. You don't want to draft a player that's far down the board at a high pick. You don't want to reach and pick a guy that'll be available in the 10th round, in the 7th round. You just want to make sure you build out your team and focus on those guys later.
Very important. Very important. And now another tip I'm going to give you guys is do not draft too many players at one position. Because if you do that, you're just stacking up one position and the rest of your positions are weak. You got to balance your team. You got to get bench players. You got to have that balance because injuries are going to happen. They're almost guaranteed. So please, please, please balance your team and don't draft too many players at one position.
That's really something you need to know. And another tip is to target upside. So what upside is a player with high potential. So these are the players that can turn from a guy that's looking like he can be a decent player on a team to score a lot more points than expected.
Yeah, like an upside player I'm looking at right now is Jameson Williams, but we'll get into that for another video. Like upside, very important. It's fantasy football for a reason. You gotta make it your fantasy. Like just don't go for brand name players. Like get a player that could win you a league and really explode.
Yep. Yep. And what you got to do is also be aware what positions are coming off the board. So if you're around the 6th round and you've yet to fill your tight end position, and you're thinking about, maybe you want to get a quarterback, maybe you want to get a running back at that spot, but you look at who's being drafted and you see 4 tight ends have been picked in the last 5 picks. You want to target a tight end at that pick. And the reason why is because let's say you decide, no, I don't want to take a tight end here. By the time it comes to the point where you want to take your tight end, there's not going to be good options available, and that'll really hurt your team. And another thing that goes along with that is if you want to take a QB in that spot, why take him then if you can get him around later based on how the board is going? If everyone's taking tight ends, there's no need to take a QB at that spot. Make sure you get your tight end locked down.
Yeah, that's very
It goes along with any positions, not
Yeah,
just
that's just
QBs and
IQ.
tight
You
ends.
gotta know what you're doing. Great words by Facility there. And now, when you're drafting, pay attention to your bench, please. Like, your bench is a part of the game. Like, it's actually very important. Like, yeah, you have starters, but starters could get injured, as I said previously. And, like, just because they're a starter doesn't mean they have to start. Like, starters could underperform, and your bench players could rise up to the occasion. So, like, really just take note to that and, like, don't handcuff your bench. Like, really play them out there because, like, maybe they'll surprise you and maybe they'll just win you a week and then eventually they can win you your league. Just pay attention to that.
Yeah, and that comes big into play with bye weeks. And every team in the league will have a bye week. So week 8, you can have 2 running backs out. Both your starting running backs could be out, and you're going to need a guy or two that can step up in that position. So you want to make sure on the bench you got guys you trust and guys that can step into that role instead of just a player that you don't care about that's not going to do anything for your team and that can lose you or win you a week based on your bench.
Yeah, man, injuries suck. Like
Yeah,
they
and they're
suck.
gonna happen. So you gotta be aware of who's on your bench and how you build out your team.
So now you gotta look for hidden gems. Like hidden gems, whew, they're a big part of the league. Like Rico Dowdle this year, he's a hidden gem. But that's for another video. We're not gonna focus about that. But like hidden gems, they're late rounders. Like in the 15th round, 14th round, you can snag someone that's like, you may not think they're good because they're going that late, but there's 15 rounds in the draft for a reason. Like, you gotta get those players and you gotta, like, give them a chance. Like, they're all in the NFL, they all have talent. Just give them a chance and they'll surprise you. Like, very important.
Yeah, that's really great advice. That's something that you have to focus on. You can't just think my starters are in, that's my lineup. Because those guys on the bench, you want to win your league. You want to have guys that can help you win every game. You don't just want to have a mediocre team because it's not going to take you very far if you don't find those guys in late rounds that can just elevate your team to the next level.
Yep.
So I think that's all we really have for this introduction to fantasy, and we're going to keep pumping out videos. This is just a start.
Please, guys, smash that like and subscribe button. Really, it will help us. And if you guys have a friend that needs this information, please share it to them. This could really help them, and they may really benefit from it.
Peace out.
See you guys later.